The chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember what that impostor said while he was still alive. After 3 days I will rise again. Therefore command the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise his disciples may go and steal him away and tell the people he has been raised from the dead, and the last deception would be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can." So they went with the guard and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone. Scholar Tom Long notes, there is irony in Pilate's order to make the tomb as secure as you can. As Frederick Buechner has observed, as secure as you can, the procurator of Judea tells them. But how secure is that? How do soldiers secure the world against a miracle? How do you secure the world against a miracle? Now, the next day, the day after the Sabbath, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary go to see the tomb. Now, Matthew doesn't say why they went. In the other Gospels, they bring spices to prepare the body, but Matthew doesn't say that. Matthew has told us all along that Mary Magdalene and the other Mary have been witnesses, have accompanied Jesus, providing for him during his ministry, witnessing his crucifixion, keeping watch at the tomb as Jesus was buried and the great stone rolled up against the door of the tomb. And it is these very same women who come back to the tomb at the very first chance they get after the Sabbath. They go early in the morning. I suspect that what they were expecting is what they saw at first, which was the stone secured at the door of the tomb. But they would soon learn that you cannot secure the world against a miracle. Now, there was an earthquake, and Matthew's way of saying that this was a cosmic event, much like the star rising at Jesus' birth. Jesus' resurrection shakes the whole world. And if the earthquake isn't enough, an angel of the Lord came and rolled back the stone, the one that was secured right in front of them. He was as bright as lightning, and his clothes shone as white as snow. This did the guards in, right? The ones who were supposed to secure the tomb, secure the miracle. Matthew says they shook and became like dead men. Once again, Tom Long reminds us that Matthew cannot resist a small joke at their expense. They become, he reports, like dead men. They are on cemetery detail, of course, to guard the dead man who was supposed to stay that way. But their charge turns out to have become suddenly very much alive, and it is they who become candidates for the grave. Then the angel speaks to the women and tells them not to be afraid. The angel invites them to come and see where they last saw Jesus, but where he is no more. I recently read that the stone was not rolled away so that Jesus could get out of the tomb. The stone was rolled away so that the witnesses could get in and see that he was no longer there. The angel continues talking to the women by telling them to go quickly and tell the disciples that he has been raised from the dead and is going ahead of them to Galilee, and there they will see him. And the women did as the angel said. They went quickly with fear and great joy, Matthew tells us. Their fear does not render them lifeless. It does not render them lifeless because they have witnessed a miracle. And they do not let their fear get in the way of the joy that they feel. They do not let their fear get in the way of their mission to go and tell. Now, Professor David Lose writes about the reaction of the women to the angel and that the fact that they don't flee the tomb in fear, but instead leave quickly with fear and great joy. He says, "Isn't that a wonderful reminder that fear and joy are not opposites, but as with doubt and faith can be experienced at the same time and indeed might be inseparable. Fear, as we have noted before, seems quite frequently in the air these days, and for all kinds of reasons. Jesus' resurrection does not spell an end to fear for those who follow him, but rather makes it possible to experience joy amid what might otherwise be crippling fear. Resurrection, that is, doesn't simply answer or end problems, but rather create something new, and Christian faith does not remove us from the hardships or limitations or challenges of this life, but creates for us possibilities that simply would not be available had God not intervened first in the raising of Jesus, and again by entering into our own lives. Our proclamations on this Easter day that Christ is risen would seem empty if the resurrection means that all our problems just get wiped away, because in reality they don't. They don't just magically go away. But resurrection means we live with fear and the hardships and the difficulty and the limitations and challenges of life, and then despite them, God can create something new. Resurrection gives us hope that the fear and the disappointments and the struggle are not all there is. God can help make a different way, a way we had not thought of before. Now, here's what it might look like to live lives of fear and great joy, to live Easter lives. Now, you may have seen this story on the CBS News recently. When he was 11 years old, professional football player Conrad Royland met one of his heroes, baseball player Rod Carew. His mother, Mary, recalled the day he gets in the car, big eyes and everything, and he's saying, Mommy, I met Rod Carew today. You know, he's a pro athlete. I want to be a pro athlete. And the rest of the day, all he talked about was Rod Carew. Now, fast forward 18 years, Conrad Royland was hospitalized with a brain aneurysm. He texted his mom from the hospital, "God has something big in store for me. I can't wait to see where his will takes me." A few hours later, the aneurysm ruptured. Conrad's parents, Mary and Ralph, rushed to the hospital, but their son was brain dead at 29 years of age. I had my right ear on his chest and was talking to him and laid in bed all day and listened to his heartbeat all day long, his mother said. And then when I left, I said, "Whoever gets his heart better deserve it." Just a few months earlier, Conrad had checked the box on his driver's license renewal that made him an organ donor. Enter Rod Carew again. About a year ago, Hall of Famer Rod Carew had a massive heart attack that put him on the transplant list. By sheer coincidence, Rod Carew received Conrad Royland's heart. Now, Conrad's family members who were gathered for his funeral read about Rod Carew's new heart and asked Mary if she thought that he might have received her son's heart. She hadn't even considered it, but she had an overwhelming feeling that it could be true. So she did everything she could to find a phone number for the Carews, and she found it and called their home and left a message saying she thought Rod had her son Conrad's heart. Now, at their first meeting, Rod Carew pulled out a stethoscope and said, "I'm going to ask Mom to listen to his heart and tell me how beautiful it sounds." Mary said that was very healing and cathartic for her to be able to hear it again. She said, "I've got it memorized." Carew said, if we can save a life, and that means including Conrad now, wherever I go, he's going to be there. Steve Hartman, who reported on the story, concluded it with these words: "When Conrad sent his mom that text saying that he felt that God still had a plan for him, he obviously thought he would go on living. And now we know he will. You cannot secure the world against a miracle." Now, most of us won't experience something like the Roylands and Carews did. But in our lives, we do face what David Lose says are tense dinner tables, or an uncertain employment future, or a continuation of illness with no end in sight, or the loneliness of having endured the end of an important relationship. Christ's resurrection does not wash those realities away. It makes it possible for us to experience joy in the midst of them as God continues to create something new. May we, like the women who accompanied Jesus, be willing to walk through our lives with fear and joy. And as we go through the hardships and disappointments in life, may we be able to hold simultaneously our fear of what the future may hold and the hope we have that God is creating something new in our midst. Friends, this is the good news, because we know you cannot secure the world against a miracle. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Amen.